In this video, I want to show you one of our latest features, which is advanced API analytics inside Zuplo. So if you come to the analytics tab inside your project, make sure you're looking at the correct environment, so your production environment or your working copy, depending which set of analytics you want to see, and you'll get this beautiful time series of your API request volume over the last 30 days, or you can look at the last hour, last 24 hours, etc. Here you'll see all of the rich status codes that have been returned by your API and show the difference of those over time. You can filter these out just by checking on them. That'll get rid of some of the noise if you want to zoom into some of the issues perhaps. And as you can see here, on June 9th, this API had 834,504 responses. So something went wrong that day, quite possibly a timeout or something on the back end that could generate that response. If we scroll down, you'll see we can see the latency for all of these requests. That is the response time of the gateway measured at the gateway, including the back end. So we had a big spike here on that same day where we had some issues. So that probably indicates some kind of timeout of a dependent service, like maybe one of the databases that we use or something timed out. What's new that we just released actually is these two new reports here, the top 10 report and the rate limiting report. These are very rich drill-in reporting tools that can really help you kind of work out what's going on with your API. So let's take a look. So in this report, we can see the top 10 API users. This uses the subject or the sub of the user making the request. So that might be an API key or a JOT token. And we can see the total number of requests, the number of 200 responses, 300, 400, 500 responses. So that weird anomaly we saw. And then 401s, which are important to look at because those are unauthenticated responses or unauthorized. And then any 429s, which typically indicate rate limiting. We can also see the average duration in milliseconds inside the gateway for each of these users that they experience. So if a particular user is having a bad time, you're going to see it visibly here. Underneath that, we have the top 10 routes. You can see where most of your traffic is going, and then top 10 IPs. Please note, all of this data has been scrambled and masked. I'm actually looking at a real API here. It's actually a Zuplo API. It's one of our backends that we use for various things. And I think it's a more interesting data set to look at some real data, but yeah, all the IPs and so on have been scrubbed. Underneath this, you can see the top 10 locations. So where is the API traffic coming from? Look at here by sort of overall volume. And we can also see the country and the colo. So the colo is which data center actually handled the request. And one of the great things with us being an edge gateway is if you have traffic from Los Angeles, it's going to get handled in LAX. If you have traffic in San Jose, it's going to get handled in San Jose. San Antonio went to Dallas, Fort Worth. So you're always very, very close to wherever your customer is. Another cool thing is these reports are all drill-in. So wherever you see these blue links, you can just click on that and you'll filter the whole report by that data. So let's go and look at traffic coming from Boydton. Click on that and I get a filtered view where I'm now filtering this whole report by the city of Boydton. Here we can see the different users. Once again, the data's scrambled here. The different routes just being used from Boydton, the top IPs from Boydton, and of course, I only get one location now because I filtered my report by Boydton. This is a very powerful tool if you're trying to debug what's going on in your API, being able to look at just users using a particular route or a particular user's activity. You can drill in that way. We have another great report called rate limiting, or the max RPS report. Now this report shows you the peak activity in terms of throughput of your API. So in this case, for this particular API, what we can see here is it's generally not that busy, doing like 20 requests per second. But occasionally, like on June 9th, we saw a max request per second of 1,001 requests. Here we see 146 RPS. On 137 RPS on these particular days. So ups and downs here. And here we can see all of the users sorted by the max RPS. So this particular user, again, scrambled data, had 1,001 requests per second. So they were driving most of this traffic on this day, I suspect. And the top 10 users by 429s. Now, luckily, we're not rate limiting anyone on this API. No one's hit our rate limit yet. So they're all zeros. But if I was rate limiting users, I'd get to see that information here. I'd get to see them ordered in terms of who's getting the most rate limited, be able to click on that, drill in. Same with IP address. Now, this information is particularly useful if you're trying to set your rate limits. What we recommend is if you're not sure where your rate limits are, set them high. You don't want to give any customers a bad time without warrant. And look at this report, zoom into your specific users, look at the busiest users that are generating the most, look at the busiest IPs if you're going to set a rate limit by IP, and then you're going to get some sense of what the max RPS is. And from that, you can do the math to set the request per second or requests every 5 seconds, etc. in your Zuplo rate limiting policies. So these reports, they're available to everybody in working copy. The top 10 and rate limiting reports are available in production for our enterprise customers. So if you're interested in getting this feature, reach out to us and we'll get you set up or update your enterprise agreement. Thanks very much. Enjoy.